Can you tell us about your Subway order from when you were 9?
Did Kale tell you? Was this Kale? Did Kale tell you this?
A good journalist never reports their sources.
Kale.
It's a vulnerable moment for you, I know. First off, we're here at the Golden Nugget in beautiful Chicago, Illinois, which raises the point that in the past year, you've done quite a bit of traveling. So I'm wondering, what are some of your favorite and, be honest, least favorite parts of the country?
I went to LA for the first time. I stayed in LA for more than a day for the first time. And LA feels very much like a post-game city to me in a way that's you can only have fun there if you have a lot of money. I know that's how a lot of cities work, but it's I don't know.
It's especially true with LA, both because it's impossible to get around if you're not Ubering or if you don't have a car.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm literally going to LA in 2 days, and I'm literally the Uber price is gonna send me into anaphylactic shock, honestly. Yeah. I went to go see Liz Phair in November, and I had to Uber from Penn Station to the venue, and it was $50.
Yeah, Jesus. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, what are some of your favorite parts of the country?
I like a lot of the in-between places. When I was playing here before I lived here and we had to drive to Denver afterwards, there was a lot of in-between places that I liked. I know it's not the most progressive places in the world, but visually it's very pretty. You know, there was snow on the ground. I took a lot of pictures on my camera. It's funny because it smelled like shit the entire time, but it was
It's rural Illinois for you, yeah.
Yeah, but it was kind of beautiful.
It's one of those places that, again, you would hate to live because of the reasons you pointed out, but
it's really nice to pass through. It also brings up a negative where it's we're such a car-dependent world. We need more high-speed rails and shit.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Which is why I'm sure that's been kind of a fun breath of fresh air being in Chicago. Not that it's high speed or anything, but
it's been fun being the little passenger princess for sure.
And on the topic of Chicago, I've been meaning to ask you, just even outside of the context of an interview, I've been meaning to ask, what would you say are some of the most unexpected or just even surprising consequences that you found of living on your own for the first time?
I think just having a whole apartment to myself and maintaining it, it's a good responsibility. So it's
yeah, and you've had time to do Pizza Friday whenever you want.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Has to be Friday though.
You never made an exception? Never been I'm busy on a Friday, let's do it on a Thursday?
No, I've definitely made exceptions for it. Pizza Friday has just been a tradition for the past however long I was alive.
Next, in your interview with Base News Network, you mentioned that you've put probably 10,000 hours into Mario Kart, and having played against you, yeah, you play like it. So I'm wondering, what are your top 3 favorite courses in Mario Kart?
When I was younger, I really liked Super Bell Subway.
That's a great one.
8. I got the Mario Kart 8 DLC. I love Merry Mountain. I want to live there.
What's the rent there look like?
Probably not that much because I feel because of the weather, it's perpetually snowy.
And you got to deal with people carting through the roads constantly. Yeah.
No, yeah, that definitely keeps the rent low. Delfino Square.
That's a fun one.
I would live in Delfino Square.
Rent there probably a little bit more expensive.
No, yeah, it's probably Italy or something.
My favorite is probably Wario's Gold Mine. Where does that place for you?
Ooh, I like... Do you like Wario Circuit, I think?
That one's also a lot of fun. It's definitely one of the most uniquely themed ones. It's such a interesting, I wouldn't have thought, let's make it a demolition derby vibe.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's Wario Stadium, I think. Right?
Wario Stadium. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Next, one of my favorite things about Census Designated is how distinct its creative direction is. I feel rarely does an album cover match the music as well as Census Designated does. So I'm wondering, how did you go about crafting the visual identity for the album?
Not to make things more official or unofficial, but it's I think Census Designated is kind of just a response to Frailty in a way where I guess it's just Frailty was the coming of age album. This is the of age album. Whatever I make after this is probably just going to be a direct response to Census Designated. It's linear, I think. It's Frailty's the 17-year-old album. Census is the 19-year-old album.
It's funny that you say that it's a response because literally in my notes I say it feels like a rejection of the sort of DIY, do it in your bedroom, sort of vibe that a lot of, not only Frailty, but I feel a lot of music from between 2021 to 2022 had. In the way that Frailty, all of the visuals surrounding it are these crushed up, very grainy, videos and stuff. It feels very much more digital, whereas this feels very much more analog.
Not to say it was disproving anything in Frailty or anything, or was rejecting any ideas in Frailty, but it was just you gotta switch it up.
I read in an interview, I think it was with Stereogum, that you mentioned part of the inspiration of how you went through it was by going on Zillow and looking at house listings, which is I feel when people are putting together visual identity stuff for an album, they go on Pinterest. So it was curious for me to hear that you went on Zillow.
No, yeah. It's also very easy to go down a rabbit hole when you're trying to find somewhere to live. Just going down rabbit holes and seeing a lot of the quirky little places. I kind of started making Census Designated immediately after Frailty. So it was I still don't really have any money at the moment to fund what I'm trying to do. By the time we get to like the point where it's time to do the rollout, it's like I have like the resources to like fund what I want to do. And I think that's like, I'm like really grateful for that too, because it's like I came into it with the idea like, oh, it'd be nice if we were able to do this, but like this will only exist in my mind. And then it's like I got like a semblance of that this time around, you know. There's always going to be things that I wish that I could have gone differently, but like my expectations were just like blown out of the water.
I feel like that's like a common trend amongst like some of like what many people consider like the best albums of the year. Is like it was crazy for me to hear from April that like Wall Socket was only like 60% of what she wanted to make, like in like her vision, like in her mind of like what she wanted for Wall Socket, which is insane to me. Like I can't imagine that album being any more like bombastic or like more ambitious than it is.
No, yeah, I'm still like not over that album, you know, like it's cray.
Can you tell us about your Subway order from when you were 9?
Did Kale tell you? Was this Kale? Did Kale tell you this?
A good journalist never reports their sources.
Kale.
It's a vulnerable moment for you, I know.
Mind you, I haven't been to Subway in like 11 years or so.
So this was the last thing you ordered from Subway?
No, but like I ordered this frequently. I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember that it was like teriyaki chicken, cheese, ketchup, pickles.
It was cheese, teriyaki chicken, pickles, ketchup, and barbecue sauce on flatbread.
Oh, that's basically what I thought it was. Like I would still eat that, honestly.
Oh, okay.
I would still eat that. It's just like as a grown woman, I'm not going to go up to Subway and be like...
Look them dead in the eye and say, can I get teriyaki chicken? And
hi, yeah, can I have the teriyaki chicken with pickles, ketchup, and cheese on flatbread and barbecue sauce? Like in my right mind, I'm not going to go up to Subway workers, a grown woman, and say that. Like,
gotcha. And I think you wear some of the influence from horror storytelling on your sleeve with the album. So I'm wondering, like, what are some of your more like deep cut inspirations when it comes to horror?
The movie Cutting Moments was inspired for the song Lips, but I think a lot of it is kind of just like intrusive thinking, honestly, because I think a lot of the horror elements that go on in like Census Designated have to do with like the body. It's like almost kind of indulgent in a way. I can't really like pinpoint what was the like inspiration behind it, but I think it's just like feelings that I couldn't really describe that turned into the songs, but like they don't necessarily mirror like experiences or feelings that I've had. Think of all like the weird like torture porn body movies like there are out there. On one hand, it's like a sane person can't really think of this, but then it's like also a sane person can think of this. It's a very universal experience that I feel like not enough people really talk about.
That whole thing of like everybody that's ever been to the Grand Canyon has like a brief moment for like a split second where they're like, what if I jumped in, or what if I pushed somebody in, or whatever. Like there's that constant like the back of your head thing, and I feel like at least the latter like few tracks on the album definitely feel like that, like thoughts at the back of your head being brought to the forefront. So that's a really good way of putting it. And to that point, over the past few months, I've heard you describe everything from Ryan Beatty to Millie Bobby Brown as like census coded. But I realized I've never...
Can you refresh my memory for a second?
So you just referred to Ryan Beatty when like he was doing the rollout for his album, and like, you know, he was wearing that like tank top against the blue sky and everything. You're like, oh, he's census coded. And then I honestly don't remember what you said about Millie Bobby Brown. I just wrote it down in my notes.
Millie Bobby Brown.
Yes, Millie Bobby Brown is so census coded. But I was wondering, like, I've never gotten an official definition of what census coded is from you. So I have a list of locations, movies, and albums here, and I was wondering if we could play a game of Is It Census Coded?
Yes.
Okay. So Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Especially, I feel like particularly in Fire Walk with Me.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
No, you get it.
Okay, I'm glad I'm picking it up on it so far. Badlands, directed by Terrence Malick.
Oh, yeah. Like, I literally watched that, like, when I was, like, staying in LA, like getting the album mixed. I watched Badlands, I watched Paris, Texas, I watched Mulholland Drive.
Gotcha.
Like,
You ever seen Days of Heaven?
No.
If Badlands is census coded, then I would say Days of Heaven is like overwhelmingly census coded. And then I have Boys for Pele by Tori Amos.
I know more about like from the Choir Girl Hotel, the song Raspberry Swirl. I like that song a lot.
And then I have not the music, but just the album cover for Breakfast in America by Supertramp.
That one's not so much census coded. That's like a view from the plane.
Right, yeah, and it's like the kind of vaguely scary looking like waitress. That's like the Statue of Liberty.
The waitress.
Yeah.
She's census coded.
Okay,
sure.
gotcha.
Like,
so there are elements.
Like scary girl, you know?
Scary woman.
Scary woman. These women?
Are these your friends? Are these your friends?
Who is this?
Do you know them?
Do you know her through Instagram?
Do you know them through Twitter? Through Snapchat?
Put in your passcode for me.
Put in your passcode? Let me see what are you texting them? And then I have not their music, but just like the Haim sisters. Just them.
No, they're too corporate.
They're too corporate?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, so maybe flashback to like 2016, 2017, were they?
2013 Haim, for sure. Yeah.
And then I have the movie The Sandlot.
Ooh, maybe. I mean, I feel like the Sandlot is like for kids.
For sure.
Know? Maybe like the color grading of Sandlot for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
And it also, like, to me, it feels sort of like vaguely cautionary tale-y.
Yeah, I think cautionary tales are like a big theme in Census Designated too.
For sure. And then this one is just a wild card, Malcolm in the Middle.
I've never seen Malcolm in the Middle.
I think you should watch it. You're watching The Sopranos and what else right now?
I'm watching Sopranos. I'm watching 30 Rock. I just finished Sex and the City. I'm also watching Bob's Burgers.
Also, Census Designated struck me as the type of album that you could uniquely spend like a fucking eternity writing. So I'm wondering, like, at what point did you decide that the album didn't need any further expansion and was ready for the world to see?
That's a good question because I feel like, and maybe this is like one of the falters of the album, but I like didn't really know when to stop. Lips was the first song I started and the last song I finished. I think like even with like stuff that I make post Census Designated, it's like I never know when it's finished. Maybe that'll like come back to bite me. I don't know. I think it's better to overcook than to undercook.
A thing that I brought up in the interviews a few times before, but also is just like a quote that is very commonly like passed around in filmmaking, is that like movies don't get released, they escape. You could toil away at something like for fucking ever, but it's like at a certain point you're gonna grow sick of it. And like I'm sure, like, did you run into any of that while making Census Designated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably by the time Census Designated was like ready to come out, I was like, I've listened to this album like 1,000 times, you know? It was the same thing with Frailty, or like for the first like couple of months it came out, I was like, oh, this album sucks. I could do way better. Why is everyone talking about this album? It's like I've like come back to it, you know, with open arms. You know, like sometimes I listen to Frailty and I cry. You know, like, and I like never cry to music. I'm sorry for being so mean to you, Frailty. I have a feeling like that's a similar feeling to how like Census Designated is gonna be, because like I've come to realize like a lot of my music is slow burns. You know, for the girls that might not get it for the first few months, like
Give it a little bit of time.
give it a little bit. Give it like a year.
And on the topic, if there's anything I remember about the night Census dropped, it's the sheer number of like interpretations of the lyrics that I saw, like flying back and forth across like Discord, Twitter, everything else.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, did you approach writing the album with the like understanding that interpretations of it were going to vary, or did that sort of like take you off guard to see how many people?
It kind of took me off guard because I honestly don't really take into account like how big of an audience I have sometimes. I don't really go on social media like that. I imagine like my friends and like the people I work with are gonna hear it, and like a couple hundred people online are gonna see it, but it's like no, like 3 of the songs on the album have like 500,000 streams right now, and it's like kind of unfathomable.
And not to mention, like, you have like what, like 150K monthly, like that's a small country. Like,
No, yeah, that's like probably like my graduating class times like 1,000.
do you think like the shows will be like, you know, your upcoming tour will be like your first sort of like face-to-face confrontation with that, or?
Yeah, because I think like when I was opening for Break-Ins last year, like such a small fraction of the people were like there for me. Being like the co-headliner this time around, there are definitely going to be a lot more eyes on me. I've like debated whether or not like should I encourage singing along, or like should I, you know, like what should I do? You know, now that there are like more eyes on me. Towards the like the latter half of the Hypochondriac tour, I started encouraging everyone to scream as loud as they could when the drop on Movies for Guys happened. That would always blow me away.
And that raises the point that we're recording this just a few days before you head out for your Designated Dreams tour with Quantic. So I'm wondering, how are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous at all for it?
I'm very excited. I definitely want to like step up the game a little bit when it comes to like stage presence and like.
And you have a live band backing you up this time, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. That'll help for sure.
Max Photographic Memory on the guitar, Nick Sacro on the drums. They definitely like, you know, make me feel like I belong on the stage.
I feel like the same goes for like any, like whether it's like filming a music video, like there's no mistake that the video, your Census Designated video, was directed by Quad Eka, because it's like half the battle is feeling comfortable and feeling like open enough to have fun and like try things.
Yeah.
And that raises the point that I feel like you uniquely started pretty big as far as shows go. Like your first show was opening for Ayaz, and the first tour you went on was alongside.
Ayaz opened for me.
Right. No, you're so right. And he played Replay how many times?
3 times.
3 times. Well, he replayed it. So I'm wondering, like, what have been some of your biggest lessons that you've learned so far, either on the Hypercontract tour or opening for Anamanaguchi or anything like that?
Above anything, like, just be confident. It's not even just like believe in yourself and you can do it. If you have faith in like what you're doing, then.
Yeah, and I understand that last tour you had some trouble with overexerting yourself. So I'm wondering, like, how are you approaching that now that the songs are pretty like objectively more vocally demanding?
So here's some tea. Prior to that, like it was literally tea. They only had plastic cups. So try drinking boiling hot tea in a plastic cup that's like actively shrinking as you're drinking it.
Yay, PBD poisoning, yay.
No, yeah, I have a feeling like that's a symptom of what happened. Because that happened, I ended up like getting like actually sick. The combination of me kind of like screaming, and I didn't really learn how to scream yet. You know, there were some days where I just like wasn't really eating like that. So it's like, you know, of course you're going to feel like shit after you just performed like a maniac and you didn't eat prior to that, you know, like.
I feel like first tours are always kind of like a rite of passage. You get chewed out and then you learn what not to do your second time around.
Yeah.
And on the topic of differing opinions, depending on if you ask Pitchfork or not, Census Designated is either a shoegaze or a singer-songwriter album, which raises the point. There's been plenty of discussion about the tendency for places like Rate Your Music to constantly iterate on like established genre labels and adding like a billion core, step, pop, like all sorts of these different suffixes. What do you see as some of the pros and cons of like the way that the internet has accelerated the diversification of genre labels like that?
I feel like a lot of the classification is like not that serious. But the thing is, like, the way genres like begin and have their own little Cambrian explosion of sorts is like there has to be a scene and a culture around it. There's a lot of like pieces about the recent like quote unquote revival of shoegaze, you know, every now and then lumped into that conversation. And like I don't really get it just because I didn't really have any shoegaze in mind when I made Census Designated, you know. I still don't really like listen to it that much, but I understand that like there's like a lot of history and culture behind it. I don't think Census Designated is like unabashed, like just straight up rock though, you know? I mean, like I've said that in the past that like it's just straight up rock. I had like the assumption basically that like breaking Census Designated down into like all these different words like was going to scare people away.
It definitely muddies the waters for sure.
It muddies the waters, but like it didn't scare anybody away. I feel like my assumptions were just like kind of proven wrong. So it's like, you know, I do kind of want to like take back what I said on that.
And on the topic of Pitchfork, I'm wondering, how has having your work be discussed by publications like it affected your perspective on them?
I think like writers taking their time, like people taking their time to like write about me is like something that I am super grateful for. Like I think the fact that I'm being talked about at all, like whether or not it's positive or negative, is like something that I'm very grateful for. But I feel like a lot of people, a lot of music fans especially, don't really look to those websites as much. I think that just comes with like a new generation of people finding stuff. You know, I still think that it's kind of like a integral piece to the like music world. At the end of the day, like I do owe a lot to Pitchfork, like just because like they gave Frailty an 8, which is like whoa, you know, like my debut album that I made when I was 17 gets an 8.0 on Pitchfork, like whoa.
And that raises the point. In your interview with Stereogum, you mentioned that back when Frailty came out, you saw some amount of truth in the criticisms of both like the mixing, but also like more like subjective stuff like your singing and whatnot on it.
Yeah.
And I think any artist can relate to that feeling of like when you see somebody criticizing something that you really like, it's much clearer and much easier to see the flaws in what like the criticisms they're making of it, and it's easier to come up with defenses for it. But whenever it's about something that you made, I feel like that like point of reference goes completely out the window, and it's really hard to discern like, oh, like, you know, maybe they are right, maybe I am like, you know, doing poorly with like this and this. So I'm wondering, like, how do you draw that line between like criticisms to sort of internalize and learn from and criticisms to just sort of disregard?
It goes all the way back to like grade school when they teach you that like an opinion has adjectives in it. You know. On the other hand, like I think the people who are like writing for publications, like they're there for a reason, you know, like it's not like anyone is qualified to do that. Like I feel like you have to be like really skilled at what you do to write for those publications. So it's like they know their shit. At the end of the day, the opinion that matters the most is probably the musicians. I have like the autonomy, I guess, to choose whether or not their opinions will like influence my next stuff.
And while putting together questions for this interview, a few of my friends mentioned I should ask you to like clarify certain lyrics, which I'm not going to do because I think discovering and interpreting that stuff is like part of the fun. But it does raise the point that whenever you put out a body of work like Census Designated, you do forfeit at least some ownership of how it's going to be perceived by the public. So I'm wondering, have you ever struggled with that sort of concept of like death of the author before?
I've like come across people who have like Jane Remover tattoos when it comes to like Frailty logo tattoos, you know, or symbolism.
Or like foy tattoos.
Foy. I think just the fact that like it made such like an impact on the people who decided to like go as far as like getting permanent ink on you. Like if it resonates with one person, I think you're doing something right. Not like regardless of what you intended it to be about, but I think it's like, you know, with something as abstract lyrically as Census Designated, you know, I don't really make that many like direct points, but they're just more so like feelings and vibes and aesthetics and stuff.
Next, you don't have to explain what it is, but can you read off 3 names from the names list?
I did talk about the names list in like the Perfectly Imperfect newsletter.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. The very first name in there was like Swisher Gwendolyn or something.
Like number one on the list, or
No, yeah, that's like the first name.
Gotcha. So how many years old is that at this point?
A little bit over 2. I'm gonna pull up. Oh wait, did you say not without looking?
If you do, or well, I'm saying no. Go for it. Like pull it up. Like pull.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
No. Okay, so
You can do it.
There's like 100 pages in that
Yeah.
shit.
No. There's 7,000 plus names on it or something.
Like I don't even remember.
You want to pull it up?
I feel like it'd be too much sauce, you know?
Too much sauce.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sure Gwendolyn is all we get for now. Because Census Designated is such a huge leap forward in world building for you, I'm wondering, in like the making of the album, or even now, did you feel any sort of like scope creep and like feeling like, oh shit, now I have to like one up myself again? Like, do you feel any of that now going forward?
Oh, all the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think I made Census Designated with like the intent of one-upping Frailty in a way, but I think it's also like that was just going to come naturally like as I learned how to make music more, because it's like you're never done learning how to make music. Like you're always going to continue learning how to make music. Just like as time goes on, like I'm just going to keep being more confident in my stuff, because like I think admittedly like Census Designated, there's a lot of parts where I'm still like very insecure in what I'm doing. Like there's a lot of vocal takes that I could have done better. Like even stuff like the photo shoots and stuff, like I could have been more confident. And not to say that like Brendan's work isn't beautiful, but if I could go back in time and be like, Jane, be a better model for this guy right now. Like give this guy like a photo shoot, you know?
In my interview with April, I remember I mentioned, like I asked her, I was like, do you see yourself going bigger next time? And what she said is like, no, I definitely am. Whatever's coming next is going to be significantly stripped back. Do you feel like you have like a sustainable track to keep going bigger, or do you feel like it's time to like maybe strip it back a little bit?
For as long as I've made music, I think I've had a very like maximalist way of thinking.
For sure.
So I think whatever I do next, like I'd like for it to be big and grand, and like I think the maximalism showed up in the production when it came to Frailty, and I think the maximalism shows up in the imagery and the lyrics for this album. As different as they are from one another, like they're sisters, you know? Like Frailty's just like the younger sister who's like perpetually 18, and then like Census Designated will be like the older sister who's like perpetually 20.
And in interviews, you've been pretty vocal about the fact that you've mostly stopped using social media non-professionally this year, which makes me wonder, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to market themselves online or just like appear on social media?
Everything feels like gimmicks and bait. It's not even about like self-promo, because like self-promo is important. I stopped using Twitter because everything is either bots, everything. It's like dead internet theory. It's like a similar thing that happened to YouTube, I guess, but like everything is about like either jokes or rage bait, or like everything's about like invoking a reaction into people, and it's like the music's supposed to do that. Like the proof is supposed to be in the pudding, not on the bill.
In a lot of things, but also in particular, like any sort of like, I hate using this word, but like content creation, it feels like we're in like the few months leading up to like the recession or whatever, and it's just perpetually this state of like free fall where like every like single one of these platforms that once used to be like much more dedicated to like the people using them, like whether it's Bandcamp, whether it's YouTube, whether it's even like Spotify and stuff.
Even Tumblr, like
yeah,
there's no porn on Tumblr. I like Tumblr just because like nobody really talks about music like that on Tumblr. You're not going to see two high schoolers arguing about like who's peak and who's mid.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not going to see that on Tumblr. I follow like 2 blogs. It's like Pokemon cards hourly.
Of course.
And there's this one where it's like Pokemon wearing sports paraphernalia.
Oh, so they're both Pokemon related. Okay.
Yeah, I usually just use Tumblr for Pokemon, and then like I think I follow the K-pop tag on Tumblr too.
Next, you have probably the most robust CD collection of anyone I know. So I'm wondering, what are some of your favorite or just some of the weirdest CD pickups you've made over the years?
I found a stand-up CD on the ground.
Really?
I was walking past the gas station, like by the 7-Eleven. There was just a stand-up CD on the ground. I have a couple like sounds and effects CDs that I got at the thrift store.
Like onomatopoeia, like whiz bang type shit, or?
Yeah, like it has some like water in it. And like the thing is, there was no like packaging that said so, because like the packaging made it look like a vaporwave CD. You can never really get your hopes up that much at the thrift store. I will say, like last time I went to the thrift store, I found a Sade CD.
Gotcha. And then what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned, either in terms of creative expression or just on like the rollout side of things, going from Frailty to Census Designated?
If you want to like be in control and like have a say in everything, like you gotta like make that known. It wasn't people telling me what to do, but it was more so my fear of what other people were going to think basically hindered me in like being fully in control, I think.
Next, considering this is one of only a few video interviews you've ever done, I'm wondering, how do interviews like this, or even just like any sort of press material like period, fit into the image that you're trying to craft of like Jane Remover?
Obviously, like, you know, I can't go back in time and tell 17-year-old me doing the first Backlight interview to be like, girl, you should transition right now. It's a symptom of like having a following at a young age, being 17 and having a Pitchfork review in an EP. It was certainly a time period like I look back at and like reminisce, because, you know, I was a senior in high school. You know, you're 17, you're not going to know it all. Like, I think, like, I don't know, I don't really plan on quitting music. Right. So I still want to be like in this when I'm like 60 years old and I'm like wearing like exclusively biker girl merch and I'm like making a piano grunge album or something, like
taking like meds for arthritis, like
No, yeah. No, I'm going to get arthritis at like 40 probably.
Oh, you think so?
No, yeah.
It's all that damn Mario Kart.
It's all that damn Mario. I'm going to get carpal tunnel like next year.
And then I'm wondering, what are some of your 2024 predictions?
Are you talking about the doc or?
I didn't even know there was a doc. I'm just talking like in general.
Do you want me to pull up the doc?
I would love for you to pull up the doc.
Here's the thing. I've seen a lot of people's like 2024 predictions. I don't really like when it's like actively wishing bad on people. You're just putting your hate into the world, and that's not cute.
The only one I could write down is that Raise Your Glass era Pink is due for a revival.
She is.
Yeah, I agree. I think
she's on her little stadium tour.
Yeah, no, she's doing all that crazy shit where she gets like lifted up into the sky and all that shit. Yeah, like good for her.
I had a prediction that Spotify is going to get better.
Okay. See, that's, you know what? A lot of people are predicting like Spotify is going to fail and then everybody's going to move to bank. Like, no, it's like I'm going to predict that Spotify gets better.
Spotify is going to get better.
We need to oust that fucker that's in CEO slot right now and then stop sending money to the...
Daniel Ek.
Yeah, that's his name, right? Yeah, that's his name, yeah.
No Wave Revival, the genre No Wave. Scrapped iCarly episode titled I Earthquake gets leaked to the public, in which the Bushwell Plaza collapses due to a magnitude 8.9 earthquake that hits the PNW.
What the fuck? Oh my god.
Oh, this one actually came true last year, but it was an artist books a residency at the Las Vegas Sphere.
The Las Vegas, who is that?
U2.
Diplo? Or U2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, of course U2, right.
Oh, this is like kind of similar to the No Wave revival, but it's like a new wave of industrial takes publications by storm. The first official necromancy.
Oh my god.
Frequency of TikTok songs begins to slow down as YouTube virality makes a comeback.
Ooh, okay.
It's kind of like in tandem to like the, 2014 is coming back type thing. Like.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, this is my recent big girl purchase, but
an iPhone 6 Plus.
Quite literally a big girl purchase.
The giantess purchase.
The giantess purchase.
And next, in every interview, I make sure to ask the guests for a few artists that they want to put our listeners onto. And with a total of 6 mentions, you are the single most mentioned person by like a landslide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The second most is Quanic with 3 mentions.
Hell yeah.
So I wanted to flip the script a little bit on you and ask if there's any smaller artists that you think our listeners should be listening to right now.
I'm honestly like not tapped in the slightest, but I can like pull up my Spotify right now and tell you stuff that I just need to put you people onto. I was listening to Callie Malone last night. There's this girl group called Baby Mint. If you're a big fan of like my electronic stuff, like you're gonna love Baby Mint. They're like, I think a girl group formed for like a TV show. Like there's a lot of Jane Remover Splice Pack in the new Baby Mint album.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. What would you say is the weirdest place you've seen like some of like that you're like, oh shit, that's my like kick or whatever, like popping up?
Baby Mint, for sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
If any of you know the song Hello Kitty Balakuri by Baby Mint, it was kind of big on TikTok this summer. Jane Remover Splice Pack. You know The Darkness, the band The Darkness?
Yeah. Okay, you're putting our listeners onto The Darkness right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Uke. Uke's really cool. There's this girl group called Rich Girl. I always got to put on Fifi Dobson. The group that does the Sopranos theme song. Alabama 3, the album that it's on, Exile on Cold Harbor Lane. Like, I think a lot of people should like tune into that low key. They're British.
Okay.
Like
British.
What?
I did not anticipate the Sopranos theme song to be done by a British band.
Yeah, they're British.
Exotic.
So foreign.
As I was writing that down last night, it occurred to me the last time I asked you that, the first name you mentioned was Quanic. And I remember texting it to them being like, hey, by the way, like Jane like shouted you out in the interview. And I remember they like freaked out.
No, yeah, I still think Zoe is a star.
There's a comment on like that interview that says like, this is really awesome, makes me smile a lot. And now you two are like close friends and performing on tour together in like a week.
Hell yeah. No, I'm so excited.
And on a similar note, both Frailty and Census Designated are completely featureless through and through, but I can imagine there's plenty of people you still want to work with. So if you can name a handful of dream collaborators, who would they be?
I've been scared to hit him up, but like I've been like meaning to hit up Randy. I also want to hit up Ben Quadeca. The scrapyard shit is like, oh my God. I envy that dude's work ethic. Like, I don't know how someone can be so like consistently creative and put out so much music in such a small amount of time. As for like less immediate connections, I want to work with Diamanda Galas. I've been like listening to her whole discography lately. I'm just like obsessed with her work, honestly. It's really harrowing. She does these like really cool like screeches, kind of like I want to learn how to screech like she does.
Awesome.
Honestly.
Finally, what are you looking to accomplish next? What can we expect from Jane Remover going forward?
Honestly, like I've been in kind of a creative drought, low-key, but I do want to make more music. I would like to make more music. For now, I'm just like excited to tour. I want to like keep touring. Like I want to like consistently tour. I've only played like not even 20 shows. I feel like I'll be able to have like a valid opinion and like valid like in and outs of touring like after like maybe 100 shows, you know, because like I feel like I really have to be like in this shit. But for now I'm just having a good time. You know, I'm just being like the passenger princess, the backseat girl, if you will.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I was wondering if we were going to be able to tie it back at any point.
Also at the diner I had this item called Irish Eggs Benedict. Is my first time having Eggs Benedict. Love. Yeah. We'll be having again.
It was amazing. Yeah. If you're ever in Chicago, Golden Nugget, I think it's got like 3 or 4 different locations.
Some of them in 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you so much.